Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Politics Relax podcast. Today, we're going to be talking mainly about refugees, asylum seekers, because it's been in the news a lot recently. Because Nigel Farage has a new show on GB News, which I'm sure everybody is enthralled to watch every single day. Uh, the first thing to talk about is obviously what's been in the news, which is about the RNLI, and Farage has called them migrant taxi services, is what Nigel Farage has called them. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Well, in terms of the wording itself, I mean, obviously, the meaning that he's trying to purvey is a negative one, and that's what I don't like about it. I mean, you could say that the words he actually uses, migrant taxi service, is realistic to what happens, but at the end of the day, the RNLI, they are conducting absolutely crucial life-saving work every single day, and I don't think that they deserve to come in for criticism for that. The migrants that are crossing the channel are in a dire situation. They are being taken advantage of by dangerous people smugglers, who it's right that the government should tackle. And it's clear that if they are in trouble, the RNLI, or indeed anyone who comes across them, should do their utmost to try and save them. The key thing is that when they are brought ashore, they are handed over to the border force or the relevant immigration services, and that they're then able to submit claims for asylum. And I think that's what I hope is what does happen effectively already. But I don't think the RNLI should be coming under any criticism from anyone, especially not Nigel Farage.
Thanks to Darren Grimes and Nigel Farage for bringing this issue up. I'm very happy because the RNLI have had a huge increase in their donations over the last few days, with the coverage and everything like that. So, although it started as a very negative story, it's kind of flourished into this very positive one, which I think is very good. I mostly agree with you, Cameron. Actually, I don't know what I disagree with. I might have forgotten it, but anyway, I think you're spot on, to be honest, pretty much. Because the RNLI have to go out and save people, right? Whatever like color they are, wherever they're from, it doesn't matter. If they're in danger, then they go out and save them, and that's the amazing work the RNLI does. And I hope long may it continue.
Yeah, and the fact is that whether people like it or not, whether I like it or not, when these migrants are in British waters, they are British responsibility. And it's right that the RNLI are there to help them to get to the shore safely. And that's really important.
Yeah. Daniel, I'll bring you in as well. Any thoughts? No, right. No thoughts from Daniel.
Obviously it's our responsibility as a country to help those types of people. They should be, it's ridiculous what Nigel Farage said. I don't agree with much, of what he says. So he should probably just shut up and go.
Thanks for the wonderful insight there from Daniel, always providing the deepest scoop of political analysis there, as always. The next thing, refugees and migrants. That's not the only time they've been in the news. Today, there's been a letter signed by who's it been signed by? I'm trying to find who it's been signed by. Oh, it was written by Yvette Cooper, who's a Labour MP, written to Priti Patel, who said the holding room facility when migrants first arrived was clearly unfit for purpose. Most people are lying or sitting, were sitting on or lying on a thin mattress, and those covered almost the entirety of the floor between the aisles and seats. Sharing these cramped conditions were many babies and women with young children, alongside significant numbers of teenagers and young adult men. So there's also concern this could spark a COVID-19 outbreak. So yet more worrying news, I think, from Dover and from like the front lines. I don't like to say the front lines because it again pushes this idea that this is some sort of war. This is not a war, but from where this is all happening, where migrants and refugees are coming in, and then obviously the Napier barracks. There's been lots of controversy around that. So I think we have to really step up in terms of giving these people the proper care, because they are people. They're just like you or me, and they deserve respect and treatment, and they deserve like a fair chance at their asylum claim. And I think it's really important that we give them all of that.
I mean, to be fair, it's probably better what you know than what they had back in their home country.
Is that really how we want to be known? Is that really how Britain wants to be known? Aren't we called Great Britain? Isn't that what we're meant to be called? It's not about we're better than this country or better than that country, or it's better than what they had before. We should be doing a good job. We can do better. It is the real key thing. It's not that this is better than what they had before. It's that we can do better. If we can do better, then let's improve it.
Well, that's your opinion.
But so you don't think they should try and improve it? You don't? You think you don't think they should try and improve the situation?
Well, just give them the facilities that they need to survive, I guess.
It's such a silly way of looking at things. Why are we not giving these people as good a accommodation as they can? They probably haven't had. They've been on a boat for I don't know how long it takes to cross the channel in pretty like harsh conditions. Shouldn't they deserve at least a bit of warmth and like good support when they arrive here?
Surely they get
So let's not kid ourselves about the severity of the situation. And it doesn't start from the moment that they're underneath a thin mattress in a unit cramped with 55 other migrants in Dover. This really stems from the fact that we're seeing the number of migrants crossing the channel or being smuggled over the channel, I'd rather say, by criminal people smugglers, increasing massively year on year. It's projected that this year, the number of migrants crossing the channel will triple from the year before. And it was already an increase from 2019 to 2020. So year on year, we're seeing an immense increase on the number of people crossing the channel. And inevitably, this is causing a very severe strain on the facilities that are in place. And I personally believe it's not acceptable for that number of migrants to be kept in a small unit, cramped together, especially during COVID. But I can understand that if year on year the number of migrants crossing is tripling, it's going to cost a lot to keep on upgrading your services. I think that obviously they're going to have to do this. They're going to have to upgrade the facilities, or they're going to have to really try hard to tackle this from the very beginning, the stem of it. And this is what I'd like to see more of. We need to be doing much more, investing more into tracking people smugglers and arresting them. And it would be quite good if the French helped us a bit more on that as well, because the people smugglers are to blame for this.
What about creating a safe and legal route? What about creating a safe and legal route from Dover for asylum seekers? That would tackle
so this is, of course, a very complex issue, but as I understand it, we do have immigration officers in Calais,
according to Amnesty International, though, there are no safe and legal routes for people seeking asylum. That's a direct quote from an Amnesty International UK briefing.
And I would understand that viewpoint. It is too difficult for people to gain access legally to the UK, but it is just fact that we do have immigration officers in Calais and in many war-torn countries such as Syria. We need more. We need more actual facilities, not just people, where people can go and they can put in asylum requests and they can have guidance and help to do that. And that is one area, again, where I hope the government will invest more. But the fact is that this is really a very complex issue, and there are so many different parts to it. It takes quite a while to understand and to get a grip of. But fundamentally, I think one of the most important things is definitely to be tackling these people smugglers.
No, of course, but I think there's this real pressure now on the Tories in general, and I don't know what this really comes down to. But over the last 5-10 years, we, as well as you say, we've seen increases. We've also seen an increase in fear of people. People are scared of these people coming across the channel, and that's really put pressure on the Home Office and Priti Patel and the Tories in general to take a tough stance on immigration, on asylum seekers, because of people like Nigel Farage, because of people like Darren Grimes. They're stoking fear, division, and hate, and that means that the Tories have to, like, whether it's the Tories, whether it's a choice from them or it's a pressure because they know it's going to get them votes. I don't really know, but it means that there's a real pressure on the Home Office to say we're taking a tough stance on immigration and people crossing the border, when instead we should be taking a kind approach, which is let's try and get as many, like, or not as many, but let's try and give these asylum seekers and people who are fleeing these war-torn areas, some of the most desperate people in the world, let's give them a chance to get across this country, because they can create real good when they come over here. And because I don't feel we're pulling our weight as much compared to a lot of European countries who are taking like millions and millions of refugees and asylum seekers. And if we do a little bit more and try to show the kind of human side of this, I think we could see like a lot more. I don't know what the word is now. A lot more. God. A lot less division, a lot less fear, and a lot less hate, and I think that could maybe improve the situation.
So I take your point absolutely. There is a kind of anti Calais immigrant sentiment in this country at the moment. But to be honest, this isn't discriminatory or anything, but I can understand that given the severe increase in the number of people crossing the channel every year. Understandably, if you're going to have 22,000 people crossing the channel, frankly, illegally, or being smuggled illegally into the country, I can understand why people would be scared by that and be fearful about that. I don't understand how that would then translate into hatred. I don't think that would be correct at all and not justified. But I think your points about the government's stance are interesting. But the one thing I would say is that Priti Patel's stance on immigration appears to be primarily all words and lacking action, or because constantly we see her launching new immigration plans, but nothing's changing. And here we're seeing more people being smuggled across the English Channel every single year, and that needs fixing. That needs real action. It doesn't need her to launch a new immigration plan every week and then make a statement about how. And it also doesn't need us to be paying the French a lot of money for a job that they don't appear to be doing.
I mean, how about we take a different approach, which is the approach I've been suggesting, which is that we take a kinder approach on these asylum seekers and we try to create safe legal routes into this country so they can claim asylum, because then there's that desperation which is taken away. That desperation leads to an increase in like people smuggling gangs, and it also leads to an increase of deaths on the channel because people are taking more risks to try and get to this country.
I mean, the real fundamental problem here is that no one really wants these people, and that's saddening. If you look at, for example, France, we're seeing the numbers of immigrants coming through France increasing rapidly every year, and it's driving the French mad because they now want the EU to put in stronger border controls against these migrants coming into France. And the reality is that nobody actually really wants them. And we can be doing better at this by making sure that we have facilities for seeking asylum in the actual war-torn countries themselves to make sure that people are not having to travel through 9 actually safe countries just to try and cross the dangerous English Channel to get to the UK. And I think this is a key area of focus for the government that they've said continuously they want to invest in. And I hope we see a lot of evidence in that.
But the real thing for me is that it's over here where the real kind of, we have to change people's minds about asylum seekers, about refugees, and what they bring to this country. We have to show the amazing positivity that like refugees bring to this country, so that we can so that you don't have to attack refugees or immigrants when you're trying to get into office. And that's where, for me, the real culture change has to come in, and that's over in the UK.
I don't think that there's an anti-immigrant sentiment or policy among the government, is what I would say. I believe this government actually peddles a narrative of primarily trying to tackle the people smugglers rather than the immigrants themselves. And that's quite right. But at the same time, the government does need to act more to make sure that we've got these facilities in other countries. And the actual war-torn countries themselves primarily, rather than in safe countries such as France, where people can go and they can seek asylum. That's really, I think, the important way we do this, and that means that we can get the best people for this country and the people that need the country the most. And that's really the key thing for me. I completely support the concept of immigration. Of course, I think everyone does, really. It's just to make immigration work, it needs the right controls on it. And this applies to refugees and asylum seekers as well, so that we can properly process asylum requests and we can make sure that we're getting the right people in this country. But to do that, we need to be opening more asylum request processing facilities in other countries. And that's kind of prong one of dealing with this issue. And the other one is to deal with the channel crossings themselves by hunting down these people smugglers and getting them in jail.
Yeah, well, I don't want to go into the full-on immigration and policy because it's going to take too long, and we're going to have a points-based system debate, and that's not what we're here for. But in terms of immigration, in terms of like refugees and asylum seekers, they only actually make up 0.3%. I think this is off the top of my head, so please don't quote me on this, but 0.3% of immigration in this country. So it's a very overstated problem, I think, as well. And it's like we're making a huge deal out of these asylum crossings when in reality we should be setting up more officers in these war-torn countries, and that is an important step in that way. And it's recognizing these people only make up 0.3% of our immigration as a whole. So it is an important issue, and it is important that we discuss this issue, but let's not overstate it and add to this division, to this fear, and to the hatred of asylum seekers, which there is, because people like Nigel Farage get like more views than the BBC when they put their channel on. All he's been talking about for the last 5 days on his show, I think he got more views than the BBC at that time. And so there are these people who subscribe to this narrative, or I mean, obviously all of them probably don't agree with Nigel Farage, but not all Nigel Farage has been talking about non-stop for the last 3 or 4 days in this program, for all I can gather, is these people crossing, like having asylum seekers and refugees. And he talks about on his YouTube channel, he gets like hundreds of thousands of views and hundreds of thousands of likes. So there obviously are a group of people who are very scared of asylum seekers, of refugees, and it's because of things like we call them illegal immigrants, and it's because of things like immigrants who are taking your jobs, and these things are not necessarily true, and it's only 0.3% of people. I just go back to that again, and it's so important that we don't add to this hate, this division, this fear. Instead, we try to like add a kinder narrative to what we're currently hearing from people like Nigel Farage and Darren Grimes. Daniel.
The reason why Nigel Farage gets so many views on YouTube or whatever is because the smarter people who actually don't waste their time on YouTube go outside. The people who watch Nigel Farage aren't exactly the most enlightened people. They're most likely people who just spend all their time indoors doing nothing. The vast majority of people.
Where have you got? I whether this is true or not, where have you got that from? It sounds like you've just come up with some. You've got this hypothesis in your head with no evidence to back this up at all. You're just making a gross generalization about that. You're right. We do have to understand who are the people who are most scared of refugees and asylum seekers, and who are subscribing to Nigel Farage's view. But instead, we have to kind of talk to them and tell them about like what's really going on. They're not taking people's jobs. They're not illegal. A person can't be illegal. They are trying to do the best for their family, and they're fleeing from a war-torn country. They're some of the most desperate people in the world, and that's the message we have to get out to these people. Instead of like attacking them, let's try to help them as much as we can, because these people are super desperate.
Yeah, so the one thing I'd say in response to that is that these people are incredibly desperate. You're quite right to say that. And as I said before, it's important that we have the proper asylum request processing facilities in countries that are engaged in conflict or suffering badly. But I don't think that it's right that anyone is fleeing a country to then travel through 9 or more safe countries just to get to the UK. And part of that is to make sure that we've got these facilities in place to allow people to do it from their own countries. But also, I believe that it's absolutely imperative that when people are fleeing their countries, asylum seekers should seek asylum in the nearest safe country first. And that is the best way to guarantee their safety as soon as they can, as soon as possible. Otherwise, what we're going to see is a lot of these people dying on the journeys to get to Calais, for example, and on the journey from Calais to Dover. And that is a key part of what we need to be encouraging people to do as well.
I mean, but the problem is there are like thousands of these people. I don't know the exact numbers, who are in like places like the Calais jungle, or refugee camps, which are like not even that much better. Obviously, they are better, but they're not comfortable places to stay, and they're not good places to stay. So they're obviously gonna look to other ways to try and get a roof over their head, a job, and provide for them and their family. And so it's understandable why these people are taking the route that they are. And we have to really look into this problem, because as you mentioned at the start, it is a really complicated problem. And it's really important that we look through every single step of this problem and dissect where it's going wrong, where it's going right, and how we can improve it.
I think the one issue I'd take with your point there is that I would say the reason that so many of these refugees, or some of them are economic migrants, or just migrants fleeing from countries for whatever reason, part of the reason that they are having to stay in these refugee camps or terrible crowded places like the jungle is because they're not seeking asylum in the first country that they get to, the first safe country they get to. That's the reason that they end up in somewhere like the jungle, trying to get across the English Channel to the UK. So I think that the most important thing, there are two really important things when it comes to seeking asylum, when it comes to refugees or immigrants fleeing a certain situation. The first is that we have the facilities in that country where people can seek asylum to come to the UK. And the second is that if those facilities aren't there for whatever reason, this kind of backup option in that case, or if the asylum request is denied, which might happen, then they seek asylum in the nearest safest country. So, for example, if you're in Syria, it could be Turkey.
But Turkey has 3.6 million refugees already, and there are 4 million refugees and asylum seekers in the country. So that leaves 400,000 people who are either waiting for their asylum claim or have been rejected. So there's such a big pileup in Turkey. So they're obviously going to look to different places than Turkey, because Turkey are quite hostile, to be honest, with a lot of these Syrian refugees and asylum seekers.
Of course, and as I say, that's you've just simply emphasised the point that it's so important that we have these facilities for people to seek asylum in the conflicted countries themselves. I think that's a point that I think that's a point that most people would agree on, to be honest.
Yeah,
because I don't think that there's a majority anti asylum seeker sentiment in this country.
I think it was a fear of, like, there was the asylum seeker stuff was talked about during Brexit. Obviously, I'm not going to say that every single person who voted Brexit, but these issues are intertwined, I think. So there are quite a few people who are very worried about asylum seekers and refugees, because how does this keep getting airtime? There must be people who have their eyeballs on it, on Nigel Farage's show, on the BBC, when they are always talking about this. This comes in cycles in the news. This is always in the news cycle. So there obviously must be some worry around it.
Well, yeah, of course there is, and I'm worried about it because I don't like to see 22,000 people dangerously crossing the channel, being smuggled over the channel every year. That is extremely worrying to me. That is 22,000 too many. The fact that they're making that journey, their lives are at risk because of the actions of these people smugglers.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Please like.